The flip side shows an eagle clutching 13 arrows and 13 olive branches behind 13 stars and 13 stripes. The number 13 being a Masonic power number. I've gone right to the top to find out if this has any significance. I don't want to be disrespectful to your great country, but what's this weird eye in a hayrick?
Well, the all-seeing eye, the Eye of Providence, is an ancient symbol. It has often been associated with Freemasonry, but it is just as often in a context outside of Freemasonry. The eye and the pyramid were from a common fund of symbols that were available to anyone.
You say it's often associated with Freemasonry, but look at this too. You've got these 13 courses of bricks, and on this side you've got the 13 stars, you've got 13 leaves, 13 berries, you've got 13 arrows. Paul, that is a lot of 13s.
Yes, well, it was very deliberate. 13 for the 13 states of the United States of America. Nothing at all odd about that.
So you don't think that anything here is a Masonic code?
Based on a study of the evidence, I would say it's not. The designers of the seal and the Freemasons were using a common fund of images that were out there and that could be used by anybody.
So while there's no doubt that Washington was founded by a Freemason, most of the city's supposed Masonic symbols are nothing of the sort. There is, though, one curious aspect of Brown's vision that I still need to investigate. His incredible claim that godlike powers lie dormant within us all. Dan Brown's novel, The Lost Symbol, is a start-to-finish chase across Washington, D.C. The forces of good and evil struggle over the possession of secret ancient knowledge that can give man divine power. Both sides will stop at nothing to control these secrets. In the book, the baddie manages to smuggle a severed hand into the Capitol, and he mounts it on a wooden stand and leaves it with the bloody index figure pointing up at the ceiling. It's an invitation to a quest in the manner of the ancients, and it's the first of a whole series of clues that pepper the book. But what the finger is pointing up at is really curious. The mural on the ceiling of the rotunda, the apotheosis of Washington, is an intriguing artwork. It captures a mythical moment when George Washington is seemingly transformed from mortal man into God. This could simply be veneration for the father of a new nation, but Dan Brown thinks it's much, much bigger. To find out what, I've had to head back to the old world. Dan Brown tells us that before it even went to America, the secret knowledge that inspired that painting was passed down from ancient Egypt and entrusted to a clandestine group of radical British scientists. Brown believes that this knowledge, the secret wisdom of all the ages, can unlock extraordinary abilities in the human mind and imbue mortal men with godlike powers. He explores this theme again and again, and tells us that this knowledge was secretly lodged with a group of 17th century scientists, including Robert Boyle and the great Isaac Newton. It was so dangerous, he says, that they were forced underground, calling themselves the Invisible College. This building, housing Oxford's Museum of the History of Science, is where some of them met behind closed doors. In what way was the Invisible College invisible?
Well, it wasn't really invisible for any kind of persecution reasons. It was a sort of society, a group of gentlemen coming together. All of them were men of high profile, all of them were high education, and all of them were men of great intellectual power.
I thought that they were invisible because they were frightened of being persecuted for all their new ideas.
No, I mean, the kind of thing they were talking about came out of classical experimentation or classical writing, and also a very well-established English experimental and European experimental tradition, into geomagnetism, into astronomy, into microscopy, into meteorology, into engineering science. There was an incredible openness when it came to discussing the natural world. I think invisible simply means a private group of friends.
According to Dan Brown, the advances they made in human understanding were because they had access to ancient wisdom. Do you think that's right?
I would regard that as nonsense lit up in bright neon lights and screaming it through megaphones. What they were drawing on was medicine, astronomy, chemistry, all of these kind of disciplines. There was no occult tradition in them.
So you wouldn't buy into the notion that we've lost this ancient wisdom, and if we can only re-find it, then we'll be at the birth of a whole new world?
In no way whatsoever. I think we're dealing here with a trainload of fantasy and with a thimbleful of fact.
Well, once again, my search for ancient secrets and godlike powers has stalled. But Dan Brown assures us the science in his book is all real. A good chunk of the lost symbol is given over to a discussion about noetic science, looking at the power of thought. Dan Brown even says that people can move solid objects just through their mind alone. Brown says that a focused thought can affect anything. The direction fish swim round in a bowl, the manner that cells split up in a petri dish, the way a plant grows. But is that kind of thing true? Or is it just a little bit far-fetched? Is it possible to wear a human soul?
It's been tried. It's been tried. And shall we say the results are decidedly mixed.
What is noetic science?
Parapsychology. Study of unusual powers of the mind, really some cutting-edge work.
Do you think it's possible for thought to move things?
I'm trying to levitate your chair right now. No, actually, I don't think move things as such. Influence processes, yes, I think that may be possible.
In the way that Dan Brown says?
More or less, yes.
But this is all still in the realm of research and experiment, isn't it? None of this is done and dusted.
Oh, absolutely not. No. I mean, it was rather amusing to get the flavor from Dan Brown's book that, we're on the verge of a breakthrough and we're going to be complete new understanding of human consciousness. But there's a long way to go. We're just beginning to scratch the surface on these issues. What
would you say is the difference between the work that Dan Brown portrays and what you do?
Probably the biggest difference is that Dan Brown's working off an imaginary budget that seems to have no limits, and parapsychology has always worked off of fairly tight budgets.
Yeah, the only hardware that I've seen of yours is this laptop and this little thing that looks like a portable electric razor.
This is a random number generator or random event generator.
Dan Brown's got one of those, but I think it's a much bigger deal than this little thing.
No doubt, and it's probably in Pod 5 or wherever it is.
Can I have a go?
Want to have a go? Okay. So this is something which samples this random number generator and turns it into a display for the participant to look at.
So what do I have to do here?
Okay, your task is on this gauge over here. You want to push that needle over into the green zone, okay using the power of your mind.
And I just fire with the mouse, yeah?
Click the button, yes.
How many times am I going to have to do it?
100.
Left to its own devices, the computer will send the needle to random numbers. I must try to psychically override it and consistently push it towards the highest score on the dial. Just with the power of my mind. Giving myself a headache. 100.
Okay.
So how did I do?
Well, Tony, I'm afraid basically nothing extraordinary in your performance.
So average would be along that yellow line?
Well, that is dead average right there, and that's about where you ended up. Started off well.
I had superpowers up here,
That back then, yes.
What are these two lines here, the black one and the red one?
Okay, the black one and the red one are what we call probability envelopes, and if you had ended up above one of those, then the overall result would have been what we call statistically significant.
So if I'd got up here, I'd have had godlike powers?
Perhaps not godlike, but we would have asked you to come back.
Even though I was so boringly average in my experiments, I do know that some of the work that Richard has